When I was a senior in high school, I applied to colleges and I applied to 6 schools and I got accepted into 4. The ones I didn't get accepted into were my top 2 picks. Once I didn't get accepted into them, I was really disappointed, so I started looking at, well, what did I get and what degree programs do they have? And the more I looked, the more I found that none of them really interest me. So I thought really hard about, well, what does interest me? So I could kind of make a decision from there. And I was thinking, like, I wish I could just bake for a living. And I started thinking about it and was like, well, what schools can you go to learn how to bake? Ivy Tech had gotten a big scholarship from the Lilly, or an endowment from the Lilly Foundation. And uh, they bought the old Stouffer Hotel and totally redid it. They made several labs, like a chocolate room. They had a whole lab that was dedicated to rolling fondant that was a certain temperature. It was all very high-end, state-of-the-art things, the nicest equipment that you could find. And so it became a no-brainer, and I did the 2-year program at Ivy Tech for baking and pastry arts. And I started the fall of 2015. In the spring of 2016, that April, I opened up my bakery counter here in Knightstown. It was just a dry case when I started, so nothing cold, nothing refrigerated. It was just things like brownies and cupcakes and just little dessert bars and things like that. And it was basically just to have money to pay for some of my books and the gas to get to my classes and insurance money and things like that. And the more I learned at school, the more I kind of applied it at the bakery. The nice thing about going to Ivy Tech is if I had to take English or math or something like that and I wanted to take it in person, if I didn't want to drive all the way to Indianapolis, I could take classes at the building at the Newcastle campus. So I did that for a semester. I took science and math and English. And my English teacher there, she used to work on the newspaper for Newcastle. I was 18 at the time. And she was like, "You're 18 and you own your own bakery?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's just like a little thing on the weekends, but I have fun with it." And she was like, "No way, that's crazy." And she was like, "I'm going to tell the paper to write about you. I still have friends that work over there." And I was like, haha, okay, like playing it off. I didn't really think anything of it. And then this woman came in and she called and she was like, "Would it be okay if I came in next Friday and interviewed you for her magazine?" And I was like, um, sure. And so it was kind of out of the blue, but when she came, she told me that it was my English teacher that had contacted her, and they wrote up an article about just how I started school, and my recipes here at the shop are halfway from school and half of them from family recipes. My 3 best sellers are my pecan pie, my Swedish nut cake, and my cranberry walnut pie. And those 3 are all from family, actually my Aunt Nancy's recipes. So it's kind of fun to be able to morph the 2 together and have something that's kind of homey, like Rice Krispie treats, something you grew up with creme brulee, something I learned at school. So I've had a lot of fun being able to kind of morph the 2 together. When my grandma was alive, had antique booths, and she had very traditional antiques. When she passed away, my mom inherited that, and so she just kind of kept her stuff and did it more of something for fun. And during the summer, I would help her with that. And when I was younger, we would go to these places that had a little place to eat and a place to shop, and we're like, wouldn't it be so much fun if I did the place to eat and you did the place to shop all in one spot? And when I graduated and we moved here, she opened up a shop right away. When I was first starting school, I worked at her shop, and so it's just kind of morphed all into this big long thing. From something as sad as my grandma passing away, my mom was able to do a lot of things with the money that she earned from the antiques my grandma had left behind that helped me raise me and my brother. And then eventually she just really enjoyed it. It became her full-time thing. So now we're both here together at the shop, and she does the home furnishings part and I have the bakery part. So my favorite wedding cake that I've done was, I actually have 2, but the first one that comes to mind is what it ended up being was sheet cakes that had little geode crystals on them, and their wedding cake was like a blue and white marbled fondant cake. It was 2 tiers, and it had like a crack where it looked like a rock had cracked, and it was all like geocrystals on the inside. My second favorite wedding cake was actually this woman who her husband had passed away, and she was in her 30s, and he passed away when she was really young. They had only been married like 2 years. She was probably like 23, 24 when he had died, and she was getting remarried, and it was very emotional for her. And when she came in for her tasting, she pretty much knew exactly what she wanted. She wanted it to be really simple but very tasteful, kind of respectful to what she had been through, but also as like a new beginning for her and her new husband. And it was just really cool to work with her. And it wasn't necessarily the cake. I mean, it turned out beautiful. She had a great eye for what she wanted, but it was just everything that had led up to it. Delivering her cake and seeing how she had done everything, it was like you just kind of walked in and you felt the love in the place. So that was a really fun cake to do too.